Welcome, welcome to week 310. I don't know what week it is, but we are doing distinction coaching today with our great and fearless leader, Mark Walsh.
I'm definitely not fearless. I'm scared of flying now. If anyone's got any good tips for being not scared of flying, I was practicing my centering on the plane the other day. After like 500 flights, I've suddenly developed a fear of flying. Anyway, hello humans. Do you want to do some centering with me? Should we do that? That's nice, isn't it? Centering's good. It'd be a good review. Put your pens down, your cups down, your preconceptions as what counts as a good human being. Put all that down and let's do some centering together. So feet on the floor, bum on your chair. Stop eating Manu. I can see you. Don't you choke while centering. Okay. Feel your weight. The loving hug of gravity downwards. The embrace of the planet. Which parts of you are carrying that weight? Which parts of you are touching the floor in your chair? Get curious. Finding a slightly more balanced way to sit so that weighting becomes a bit more evenly distributed. How much of your fat bum can you put the weight through? Rising up from that, we have a rebound from gravity, the lightness, the consciousness erection that is the human spine. If you're not smiling, you're doing this wrong. What would it be like if you know, like a happy nipple that's just a bit perky? Do you know this word? It just sort of sticks out, doesn't it? A happy nipple. How would we do if your whole body was like a happy nipple, just sticking out a little bit in every direction? Relaxing the mouth and the belly, enjoying the humor, maybe enjoying the rage. That's fine too. Keep breathing. Take a couple of deeper breaths. Thank yourself for making space, for training, for persisting with this course as you get towards the end. Well done. Go you. You didn't quit. And let's do a little bit of social centering. Go to the screen. Find your favorite human who looks like they need a little bit of love today. Just give them a little bit of love. Bit of co-regulation together. Allow yourself to be looked at. Good. So that was like 5 minutes of a quick bit of social centering and centering. How'd that feel? Feel nice? Centering is a fucking amazing tool. Don't forget it. I want to keep reinforcing that, particularly when you're working with normal people who don't do body mind stuff. They're like, wow, I changed my state. It's incredible. So don't underestimate centering. If someone's having a rubbish day, you can turn the whole day around. Give them a whole sense of themselves. It's quite different. So I wanted to reinforce that. I'm going to do distinction coaching today. Before I do, however, let's do a quick speed review of some of the other coaching tools on the course as we're coming towards the end. How are you, first of all, out of 10? 10 being the best you've ever been. No sevens allowed. So you have to be 8 and above or 6 or below. Okay. Fingers, please. Fingers are good. Embodied ways. All right, good. It's good to know. Get a sense of yourself. How's your learning and listening? What's your embodiment like? Is it wide open like a flower ready to receive a buzzly bee? Is it like ice in Finland that's been cracked, ready for a fat man to put his fishing rod through? What do you like today? I don't know why that image came up. I have no idea. My brain works in strange ways. Why am I thinking of fat Finnish men? I have no idea. It's a bit of a come down from the Italian conversation, Candice, you know, frankly. Okay, good. Getting distracted. Good. Let's take a few more breaths. If in doubt, breathe. We could do cycles model. Where are you in the cycle of your day? How's that impacting your learning? Beginning the day, ending the day for different people. You don't have to shout out, just for reflection. Where are you in the cycle of your month? If you are wombish, the friend round for lunch the other day said, I'm in my winter. You talk. I don't want to talk. I was like, okay, I can do that. I'm Irish. She was very aware of her cycle. Where are you in the cycle of your year? I'm in the peak summer week. There's 1 week of the year where Britain is gorgeous and I love it. And that's where we're at. And that's why I'm high energy. I'm also in the spring of a romance. Oh, it's exciting. What about your life? I feel like I'm in the late summer of middle age. Any of those things impacting you today? Maybe in the chat. I've given you a few cycles there. I had another summer one day. I was with another group and just no one could be asked to do any coaching. No one could be bothered. Everyone was in that like summer, oh fuck it mode. Different kind of summer mode, huh? And it was like, okay, we'll do a summer call. Let's just have fun. No need to fucking learn too much. Cool. 4 elements. Which element have you been embodying in the day so far? What do you reckon? So I want you to write 2 elements. One is the element you were embodying. And the other element is if you weren't fucking stupid, what would you have embodied? Okay. And that's the coaching. So it might have been, I was really earthy and that didn't work. So maybe I should have been more watery. And what I'd like you to do is be regretful and hate yourself. No, but you could have the intention to do it differently next time. Does that make sense? So I was fiery. That wasn't so helpful. I could be watery next time. Well, I was fiery. It was awesome. I'm the shit. I'm going to be fiery again. Do you see how simple this coaching can be? Obviously, we can do this through the body, right? You know, show me, let's do it, enact it. Good. And which of the toolkit poses would enhance your life for the rest of the day? Do you need to be a bit more self-caring, a bit more taking up space, a bit more giving? What would be? And if there's a toolkit, if it's not a pose, you could make one up. The drunk aardvark pose. Yeah, some of you are naming poses that you've done with me in live workshops, but not on here, which is cool. By the way, new live workshops. Before I forget, I'm doing a British tour because I'm leaving Britain in December because the week of summer isn't worth staying for. So British tour, I'm doing Stroud, Frome, Brighton, Leeds, and Glasgow. I think I might be in London in the middle. So there's that, and I'm also in Vienna because we polled you, and Vienna came top of the poll. So get that in your diary if you want to see me in Vienna, because you know it's OCD Paris, isn't it? Really. So I will need some support. That's what I call Vienna, OCD Paris. Do you like that, Julia? It feels it's a bit uptight. It's like elegant and classy, but a bit fucking uptight, isn't it? Nice coffee shops, not Amsterdam style. Good. All right. Hurrah for Leeds. Leeds up north. Okay, that may or may not happen. So get booked in if you want it to happen. Didn't want to money in Frome. All right. That was just a quick review of some of the parts of the course. Any questions before I move on to our today's topic? I made some new slides, especially for you guys. Where are they? This is the last technique that we're going to teach you. Oh, where's that question gone? What is the pose to get into action? You can do entering pose, just like Aikido pose or warrior pose, a couple of others. Pushing pose. These are all, of course, in the toolkit course, which is available in September. If you want to have some break and then come back to study with us, it's deliberately designed as a nice follow-up. Some of you may want to come and be mentees instead. You do both, of course, but toolkit If you haven't got it already, there'll be a special offer email, which will usually close, and I think it's close it before August. Actually, probably before mid-July. Anyway, you'll get it email. Good. Any other questions? Okay, we are going to look at distinction coaching today. So this is one of the tools I use most often as a coach, very, very frequently, 1 in 2 coaching sessions. It's one of the trickier ones to demo because it only applies in certain situations. It doesn't always apply. Unlike, say, centering, which is nearly always a good idea, and 4 elements, which is generally a good idea. You know, you can generally get some new ideas from 4 elements. Distinction coaching is a specific thing, so it's kind of hard to demo, though I will next week. We'll do some as a group today. Why is it the Spice Girls? Aha. This is showing my age. The Spice Girls had a classic called 2 Become 1. Now, obviously, in a love situation, that's quite a nice idea. However, what's often happens that's at the root of many coaches' problems is they've collapsed 2 concepts into 1 concept, and that gives them a shitty choice. I will explain what I mean in a minute. So collapsing 2 concepts into 1, which gives them a shitty choice. So a lot of the things that people do is they make distinctions. So this is just an example. This is not the technique. This is just an example. Yeah, well, Rivi hangs her head in shame. In this example, someone might not know the difference between important and urgent. And making that distinction gives them a new behavioral possibility, gives them a new option. So I said to my PA today, well, that's kind of urgent to get me a new t-shirt before my photo shoot, but it's not that important if I don't get a new t-shirt. Yeah. And this is just an example of a distinction that someone might not have. Make sense? Yeah. So when you come along and teach them something, that's essentially what teaching is you learn a new distinction. So a kid, when they meet everyone, they meet every woman, they go, mum, and their mum has to go, no, 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 that's not your mum, that's just a woman. And then they go, oh, so there's women and there's mum. Okay, that's different. Does that make sense? Yeah, so they learn a new distinction. So this is what we do throughout life. And if you're like a wine taster, you get very, very fine distinctions. Or me with an Aikido wrist lock, you know, this wrist lock's very different than this wrist lock. Looks the same, but it's very different. I have distinctions that someone else might not have who's not an expert. If you're a foodie, you have distinctions. If you're a coffee snob, you have distinctions. As we learn about any topic, we get more and more distinctions. Yeah. So this is generally what learning is on one level. But in embodiment terms, there's a particular application to coaching you'll find helpful. So let me start with a question. What are 2 things that people confuse that they think are the same that aren't? So not in the external world, but maybe in their behavior or in terms of qualities. A classic example would be being nice and being a good person. Virtue is not the same as being conflict avoidant. They confuse those 2 things. Yeah, because you can be not nice, but in a way that's actually really useful and kind to people. Yeah, relaxation and collapse, great example. So a lot of people think that you don't relax, you just collapse like a, I'm drunk on a couch at the end of a day's work. They have no concept of relaxed alertness. They think you're either tense or you're collapsed. The idea of being relaxed and alert is just, it's not a new, it's a concept they don't have. You know? So they've done the 2 become 1. They've taken 2 concepts. One is being collapsed. One is, being collapsed or alert. One is being relaxed or tense. And they've collapsed those 2 concepts into 1 thing. That gives them a shitty choice because now they're either tense and awake or they're collapsed and relaxed. Does that make sense? So they don't have that 3rd useful option, actually 2 more options, but 1 in particular, of being relaxed but awake, which, say, a martial artist would really need. Simplicity and ease, good, that's a profound one. Yeah, boundaries and aggression is the classic one. So this is the one I'm doing distinction coaching with again and again and again. Okay, there's various versions of this. You can have a problem either side of this as well, right? Confidence and being loud, yes. So being confident is being arrogant. That might be another one, right? Might be another distinction. Or being loud, being certain, and actually being an expert. That's a classic American distinction. Convictions and reality, story and truth. Yeah, story and truth's a little bit different for this purposes. Interesting, but different. Energy and speed, right? Nice. That's profound. That's a nice one. Yeah, leading versus dominating. So if someone thought that leading was always being dominating, particularly if they were German, right, Katharina? Because what's the German word for leader? Yeah. Mein Führer. Is that the masculine, or is there a feminine version? It's also the feminine? Okay. Yeah, that's good, because there's plenty of Mein Führers and women in Germany these days. So Führerin, okay, thank you. So they would have that distinction that if all leadership was dominating, and the German joke's not a joke, this is a major issue in Germany, then why would you be a leader? Because leaders are always violent, nasty, dominating people. So what would it be like? The coaching question is to be a leader, but soft, or a leader and kind. What would feminine leadership be like? You know, there's various versions of this. Yeah. Does that make sense? You're in Scandinavia. What would it be like to be masculine, but not abusive? Yeah. Or feminine, but not a pushover? Oh my God, we can't have that. That would create gender polarity. That's not allowed. Yeah. So this was a big thing. I was coaching a lot in Sweden. People were really longing for the positive sides of that. Cool. Excellent. Good. So these are some really nice examples. Thank you, everyone. And you came up with some of the classics. The leadership one's a classic, but this is the one on my slides, which is very similar to what a couple of you said. So these are the possibilities, right? We can say no in a nice way. No, I don't want to do that. I'm actually taking care of you and me, and I've got a boundary there. I'm being kind to me and or you, and I've got a boundary there. Yeah. We can say yes in a nice way. Yes, I'd love to do that. That's in my interests and your interests, and wonderful. Yeah. Saying yes and nasty. What would that mean? That would be confusing to some people, right? Surely yes is always nice. That's a confusing one. Equally, saying no and being nice might be confusing to someone, because they might think anyone that says no is a bad person. They're not very nice. They're a nasty person. So instead of having this full range of options, which we might put into those terms, right? So obviously the two you probably want would be accepting and assertive rather than aggressive and passive. Yeah. Instead of having those two options, 4 options, 2 of which are quite positive, they don't. They only have these 2 options. And this is a shitty choice. Yeah. So either they say yes to everyone and they're a good person, or they say no and they're a horrible person. And if their primary commitment is to being a good person, won't say no and they'll be a pushover. This could be the other way around. This could be that they have to be aggressive because you have to say no all the time. Yeah. It's the average German woman who thinks she has to be really masculine and assertive, and that's the only way that she can have strength and independence. So like that is a mistake. There's plenty of other ways to be strong and assertive without having to be raw. So what do? Is we bring back the nice option. So you could do that just with verbal coaching, right? You could just say to someone, what would it be like to be loving but boundaried? Just as a coaching question. And people go, because you've just given them the third option. Does that make sense? Yeah. You could go the other way. What would it be like to say yes and be abusive? Or this is why I was coaching someone today that works for an NGO. And it was like, when is keeping on staff who don't do their job actually unkind? Anyone worked in an office with people that don't pull their weight? Yeah. It's not kind to anyone. Ultimately, they're in a job they don't like. The organization's suffering. If the organization goes bust, in this case, it was a charity, and said, like, is that kind to the donors who are giving money and 20% of it's being wasted on people that shouldn't be working there? Yeah, who aren't doing the job. So how is the yes unkind equally creates a light bulb moment? Does that make sense? So I could ask you all that now, just as a coaching question. Where do you have an unkind yes in your life? Either unkind to yourself or to the other person. Or we could make this distinction through the body, couldn't we? Yeah, we could make this distinction through the body. It's another word for leader. Thank you, Kristen. Show me accepting in the body. What is it like to be a yes, a loving, open, consenting yes in the body? We could use pose for this. You could have them generate the pose themselves. It might be different from the toolkit pose, but it won't be that different. Okay, now here's the distinction. Give yourself a little shake and a wriggle. Show me the pose of being a passive victim who has to say yes. It's like, for me, it's like, is that the same thing? If you think it's the same thing, we've got work to do. Do you see what I mean? Most people, though, will go, oh, yeah, that's a different concept. Now they have a new concept. They have the passive, violent, yes. Yes is violent through allowing violence rather than active violence. Yeah. Passivity. Yeah. Or we have now they have a distinction between a consenting, open, loving yes and a passive, victimy yes. You with me? Now that could be linked to gender, right? That could be as a woman, I should be have that open, accepting vibe. Okay, but do you have to have the passive one? Yeah, no, you don't. Okay, great. Now we've got a new distinction for you as a woman or as a Spanish person or whatever, as a nurse. That's one I've come across a lot before. Yeah. Or we could go the other way. Show me an aggressive boundary. Everyone show me an aggressive no. Some of you have, Catherine, you're very quick to get into that. Very quick, Julia, as well. Some of you straight out the bag on the aggressive no. Okay, now show me how you would say no to someone you love. Maybe put one hand on the heart. Imagine you were talking to a child you adore. I'm giving you the easy, calibrated end of the pool here. Yeah. How would you say no to my niece who wanted another story to be read? Yeah. Is there a difference between those two no's? The answer is yes. If you think there is no difference, we have some coaching to do. Sometimes people go, here's how you know it's you're on the issue, because they go, what do you mean a leader who isn't a dominator? What do you mean a follower who isn't passive? What do you mean a woman who isn't always agreeable? Does it make sense? They're like, what? That's crazy talk, motherfucker. Yeah, I don't know why I am Black American for the purposes of this joke, but I am. Just roll with it. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I think it's just an accent. I think we're going to be okay. We're not going to get cancelled. Yeah. I tell you what, I've been listening to a YouTuber who speaks like that. Okay. So eubonics aside, you get the idea? Yeah. Good. People get very confused with this concept for some reason. Yeah. I'll go through the slides again. So they have made two become one. We do not want that. We want one to become two. Okay, that's our job. You can sort of smell it because they'll say something that makes you go, They'll just say something that you just go, that what? What do you mean you have to be like that? Or what do you mean it's not nice to say no? You usually that's the sort of beginning of the coaching is where you spot it. Spotting it's the hard part. It comes with experience. A lot of it comes down to yin and yang. So it comes down to seeing yang in a certain light or yin in a certain light, not seeing the dot of yin in the yang and vice versa. So we're making new distinctions where two things have become confused, particularly two concepts that aren't the same that have been mixed up together, giving them, instead of all the options, giving them a shitty choice. So one that's a helpful choice and one that isn't a helpful choice. Yeah. Good. So what our job is to help with the new one. Maybe we use the red one to sort of find out that green one there. Yeah. Again, this is one example, but it's a pretty classic example. Coaches, you've come across this like every time you do boundaries work, assertiveness work. Yeah. Because here's the thing. People know, like, let's take the example of saying no, right? People know that it's a good thing to say no. They know that cognitively. They know that. But why are they not doing that? Because they've bound it up with something they don't want to do. They don't want to be nasty. So we have to unseparate those two things. This sounds like an incredibly simple technique, and it is, but it's mega, mega profound. And you will be doing this in like 50% of your coaching if you get this. Why do we use the body? Because you can do it just cognitively. You can just ask, what is it like to say no and be nice? The body finds that somatic reality because it's embodied in them that they don't have that somatic choice. It's yes, 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 or fuck you. Yeah. Followed by guilt and shame normally. Right, Candice? That's how we roll in Canada. Yeah. All right. Good. You see, I'm not just being mean to the Germans today. I'll kick a Canadian just for so identity stuff is often like this as well. Like a man has to be like this. A German is always like this. this stuff on the level of identity, they've collapsed an identity with something. Yeah. So and this can be really challenging for people because it's like, but this is who I am. All right, good. It wasn't many slides to it. It was a few. Thought I'd make an effort. Alrighty. Let's check this conceptually that you've got it. It's sort of elusive concept in some ways. Christina says it's the hardest thing to teach. And it's simple. We can all do it, all the trainers, but I'd say it's the one I see students maybe don't get on Keck. Like pretty much everyone walks away from Keck understanding like centering and 4 elements and leader follower generally, but this is the one that they don't always get. It can take a year or two. Yeah. How can we make the distinction between being authentic? Sorry, authentic, it's a bigger word for me. Not a choice we impose on ourselves. Yes. So the concept of authenticity is an interesting concept, isn't it? Is a 2-year-old authentic when they scream and shout and throw themselves on the floor when they're not allowed a candy bar in the supermarket? They're being very authentic, yeah? Is it necessarily a good thing? Probably not, if we want them to grow up and be anything other than a conscious dance teacher. Yes? No offense, conscious dance teachers. Actually, you can take some offense. It was a bit bitchy. So some offense. There we go. All right. So authenticity, I say, is a concept that needs examining. Let's say that much. So this is actually to do with worldviews. So conservatives think that we're born evil and need training, or we're born stupid and need training. And liberals think we're born perfect and just need to express it and uncover it. And they're both kind of right. Yeah, they're both kind of right. Unless half the population's retarded and you were the one who got it right, whichever side of the fence you're sitting on. That's unlikely, isn't it? That would be a tremendously arrogant assumption. Yeah. So yeah, that's what's going on there. Yes, belief systems can definitely conflate things. For example, being sexual is being sinful. Yeah. Now, it is possible to be sinful with your sexuality. If you don't like sinful, you could say violent or unkind. There is ways to be sexual that are deeply unkind. Some of the worst things human beings can do to each other. But is sexuality itself always unkind? I would say no. I would say it might be helpful to separate those two things out. Yeah. So, but you can see how at a certain point they got squashed together into a religion. No names mentioned. Good. What would be an example of a nasty yes? Yeah, so it's allowing abuse. Okay, allowing abuse to yourself. It's nasty to yourself. Saying yes to something you don't enjoy or isn't good for you is a form of abuse. Self-abuse. Make sense? You're subtly abusing the other person as well because you're letting them become an abuser against them without them even knowing, which is quite fucked up, really. Yeah. Passive aggressive is just a swing back from that. So passive, when we allow ourselves to be abused, eventually we will go to the aggressive option. And then usually again, you know, the joke I made about Canadians feeling guilty, right? Because if you view all boundaries as aggressive, eventually you'll explode and it will build up and you'll do it. And then you'll either be like, I had no choice, denying responsibility, or you'll feel tremendously guilty about it. And then there's a trail of dead bodies, and everyone said, but she was so nice, and she did everything everyone asked. And you know, it's always the nice ones. Good. More questions, please. Being sweet when you're really upset or irritated. What do you think you might be confusing? This is a tricky question because if you knew, you wouldn't be confused, right? But there might be some things that are on the edge of your awareness that you don't need a coach to work out. Yeah, so you can cognitively understand the distinction, but what we do is help people embody it, right? So they've got something to practice. That's the big thing with embodiment. Cognitively, still kind of cool. It's not bad, just to ask it as a question. Could this be about generalizations? Yeah, in some ways, you know, one become two means you're over generalizing for a set situation, right? By the way, the the disdain for and fear of generalizations is something that's endemic to Western culture and has certain problems. And our culture's been moving more and more towards not liking generalizations for certain time. And what that leads to is the cult of the individual, which is causing all sorts of problems. But that's a philosophical side note for another day. Restraining myself, Candice. I was ready to go off on a whole philosophical rant. How do you coach someone into assertive instead of passive aggressive? Yes. So you give them the distinction. So what is it to be assertive in the body? And then we can say, what does that look like linguistically? Yeah. So then we practice that. So we practice the body, then we practice the language, and then we do centering because they're still freaking out. No one's going to love me if I say no. Breathe. It's going to be fine. Mark loves you. We're going to get through this together. You can say no. Calibration, support, social support, empathy, practice. Make sense? By the way, that's your job as a coach, as an embodiment coach. A lot of what you do is you love people and have them do centering while they do the new hard thing. And they go, but the thing's new and hard and uncomfortable. And you say, don't worry, I will hold your hand. I love you. And you can do that breathing thing. We just practiced. Let's go. Yay. And that might be, being vulnerable. That might be being boundary. That might be being sexual. That might be being sexual, whatever. Right? Like there's a million things we do that. That's good parenting. That's being a good lover. That's being a good friend. That's being a good coach. That is the process. So you'll get the process. New behavior that's linked to something bad and scary, doing the new behavior while self-regulating and co-regulating. Why do we want them to self-regulate? So they can do it on their own. Why do we co-regulate them? Because it makes it easier while they're learning. That's calibration. Anyone see me love clients on the demos? Love, love, love. That's what you do. Just love the shit out of them until they can do the hard thing. And then you gradually remove the love till they can do the hard thing on their own. Yeah, or you make the thing harder. Calibration. Yeah, asking for clarity and being pushy. Great. So what's the body of asking for clarity? And we could use a demo from something at work. Healthy boundaries versus unkindness. Yeah, authenticity versus just being a rude twat. Yes, there's one. Slightly guilty of that from time to time. What is a model to address the desire to be authentic? Okay, so I'll talk a bit more about authenticity. So 2 ways to work with embodiment: top down, bottom up. Okay, neither of those things are sexual. Top down and bottom up. What do I mean by that? So we can change the body deliberately, cognitively. We can center, we can take on a toolkit shape, we can alter our breath or our posture. Totally valid, not authentic in inverted commas. We can also, however, go with the body, ask the body questions, feel the flow of the body, encourage the body, exaggerate the body, get people to, like right now, you're in an emotional state, make a noise that makes it bigger. Right now. Like, rah, woo, So that's authentic, inverted commas. Because what we're doing is we're encouraging the flow of the body, which is sometimes really, really useful. When do you use which? When the other isn't working. If you're like a massive control freak yoga teacher who's like, I don't have anger issues, I have no anger, I can center my way out of it, you might need to go scream and hit a pillow and dance up and down. Equally, if you're a mess and you're screaming and hitting pillows and jumping up and down and all that stuff, you might need to go to karate and get your shit together and become an adult. Welcome, you are no longer a toddler. Make sense? Yeah. The other one is things are going to feel weird till you're used to them. Like, the arms crossing one you've done with me before. Cross your arms. Cross them the authentic way. Okay. All that means is the way you're fucking used to. Cross them the inauthentic way. Oh, it's all so awkward. Yes, you're just not used to it. It's not any different biologically, is it? It's exactly the same. Yeah. One just feels normal. People get used to the feeling of being in an abusive marriage. People get used to the feeling of being hungover every day, right? Like that's really familiar. Yeah. Unfortunately, the body is super conservative. The body mostly what the body does is get you to do what you've done before. Anything else would be too much work. That saves loads of energy, but it keeps habitual patterns. Okay, that's why we need embodiment to do the hard thing, which is to do the creative thing. Yeah, which we can do top down, or there is a way in which a sort of natural emergence will happen in the body. You go dance for 2 hours and the body does what it needs to do, and you don't quite know what it did, but you feel better afterwards. Yeah, that's what 5 rhythms is. It's a sequence to do that. Yeah. Make sense? Dropping some gold on you guys today. This was worth the far too little money you paid for this course already. Well worth it. Good. Yes. What is it to be playful without being childish or irresponsible? There's another. That's a nice one. That's a nice one. Yeah. What is it to wholesome pleasure versus addictive pleasure? There's a distinction for you. Or indulgence versus true enjoyment would be the way of embodying that. Does that make sense? Once you've got that distinction, things are a lot less addictive because you go, oh, that's the wrong kind of pleasure. I took some pretty serious Ukrainian painkillers for my bad back this week, and I didn't know if they were opiate or not because they were illegal in the UK, this brand. And I took one and nothing happened, and then the pain stopped, but I wasn't like, more, I want more. If it had been opiate, my entire system would have gone, ching, let's take 10, which it wasn't. I did Google it. I'm not totally irresponsible. I was pretty sure it wasn't an opiate, and it wasn't, which was good. Were it an opiate, I would have felt it immediately in my system because I have a clear distinction between a painkiller and an addictive painkiller. It's a different embodiment. Does that make sense? Addictive things like light addicts like me up in a whole different way. Yeah. What about with your boyfriends? Can you tell the difference between excitement and obsession? Do you know the difference between a healthy love from secure attachment, a healthy excitement of a new romance versus your weird, neurotic, trauma-driven attachment problem obsession? Until you do, you're going to have rubbish boyfriends. That's a great distinction to learn. Some of you older people are like, yes, I learned that the hard way. My third husband is much nicer. Well done, ladies. Well done. We all learned, didn't we? We all learned. Me included. Silly versus insincere. Yeah, it could be. Could be. Yeah. Sorry, Sophie. I didn't mean to hit you hard, but it is some of these distinctions are really really profound once you get them. Like the drug addict one, that's really important for me. It's really important for me. Like these are life-saving stuff. Good. Anyone else got some confessions to make? What do you conflate? And I know you've got your like rationalizations. You're like, yeah, but I'm not really being pushy because actually it's really necessary. And yeah. No one believes your off-center rationalizations. You know when you're full of shit. It's when your friends give you that look and they go, really? Okay, great. So tired from lazy. That's a different feeling. One is I can't be fucked, which might be like I'm demotivated. I mean, lazy is not necessarily the kindest framing, right? It might be I need to, maybe I'm not on purpose with this work, right? Yeah, separating boundaries from being mean is a classic. Being responsible without knowing everything. Interesting. Anyone got any earth ones, like being responsible versus being uptight? That would be an earth one, wouldn't it? Anyone need that? Being a control freak versus looking after safety? Yoga teachers cross that line and they have to control every single thing going on in the class. But if you ask them, they'd say, oh no, I'm just taking care of people. Different embodiment though, isn't it? Control everyone versus taking care of safety. It's very different. Different embodiment. Affectionate versus dependent, right? I had one student that didn't know the difference between, oh, she's adorable. She doesn't know the difference between lust and friendliness. And that causes her problems. She has no embodied distinction. Some of you may know them, so I'm not going to name who. I can't give you too many details. They're absolutely adorable, but they look like they're turned on and flirting with everyone the whole time. and they're not, and they're just constantly giving people the wrong impression. And I actually realized she does not have a distinction between being friendly and being kind of aroused. It's very, very similar in her embodiment. Yeah, not a good look. Well, quite funny, and if you know how to handle it, it's amusing, but got her in some trouble. Okay, 3 things. Oh my God. All right. So we might be dealing with 2 separate distinction coachings. Yeah. So we might have Mother Teresa. So is that like a savior versus a caring is the distinction there? Yeah. And a control freak versus being suitably parentally caring. So we've got 2 distinctions that need to happen by the sounds of things. Yeah, we can have a 2 by 2 by 2. Ah, complexity. Yeah. Thank you. Kindness versus openness. Nice. Yeah, it's not always kind to be open. Openness versus oversharing. Guilty. Anyone else? No. It's one of my big trauma red flags. No. Needy versus vulnerable. Oh, interesting. Interesting. Problem when you see these written is you don't know what anyone means, right? Because here's the thing about words is they're very inexact placeholders. Vulnerable is a classic. Like everyone show me vulnerability in the body. And if you look at the screen, you'll see some quite different embodiments. Some of you look what I'd call scared. Some of you look what I'd call childish. Some of you look what I'd call sexy. Some of you look what I'd call open. Do you see what I mean? Because we're using this one word, vulnerable, fucking Brené Brown, okay? And nobody's embodying the same. We're embodying all these different things. So it's not that the word is wrong. It's just that it's covering a lot of stuff. It's not a bad word. It's just an inexact word. And all things like this, like what you call hate, I might call anger, someone else might call passion. Like it's like when you see a Greek person getting passionate about something, or an Italian, Julia, I'd go, oh my God, why are they so angry, right? So this, but the key thing is what's the embodiment? And this is an interesting question. What does the embodiment predispose them to do behaviorally? So if someone has a tight forwards embodiment that predisposes them to punish someone they think is morally wrong, I would call that anger. Does it make sense? You seen Curtis's book, my old coach, Curtis, this book, Handbook of the Emotions. He breaks down all different emotions into these things. Quite a good book. Like here's one, indignation. It's got like a whole thing, related emotions, its purpose, its somatic component, how it moves. It's got like a whole page on indignation. Whole page, 2 pages. So you can geek out on this stuff. He tried to sort of put it into a dictionary, but the key thing is, the book is called The Field Guide to the Emotions by Dan Newby and Curtis Watkins. My old coach, dead now. Dan Newby's still alive. He's in Barcelona. He's a good guy. Good coach. Very earthy coach. Good. Yes, so rather than Curtis and Dan, they try and make this dictionary. I think you just go, well, what's the client doing, right? What they call vulnerability or whatever. Let's see the embodied version of it. A little bit sad because Curtis is my coach and he's dead. A moment of sadness. Good. All right, distinction coaching. Are we there? We got it? Someone put your hand up, unmute, tell me your problem, and I'll say how it might be a distinction coaching issue, or it might not. I'm not going to coach you today, but I'll tell you how it might be. Coach you on the demo. So we have some hands up. Any kind of 6 to 7 out of 10 problem, not too hardcore traumatic, that you don't mind sharing and it being shown to everyone. So can we have an electronic hand raise if you've got an imperfect life? This is your chance to get some input. Who's up first? Kelly, what's your issue in one breath?
Charging money for coaching, being spiritual, and like somewhere on the other line is greedy. If I do it.
Mwah. Thank you so much. I forgot this one and it's a classic. Thank you so much. So lots of times when I'm doing marketing coaching, stuff comes up between you can be a good person or a bad person, and you can be rich and you can be poor, and they've conflated the two. So now they have the choice of being a good poor person, classic narrative in Buddhism and Christianity, or a bad rich person. That's a shitty choice. Okay, a version of that is it's spiritual to be poor. Okay, so Nietzsche talked about slave morality, and there's a lot of what's called compensatory morality or compensatory stories around money, especially. The problem is they make you impotent because then you've got a shitty choice. Anyone else feel like they've embodied this, even if you don't really believe it? Somehow money is bad and you're a bad person if you make money, or you're less spiritual somehow. Yeah, huge part of our culture. Christian and Buddhist, that one. Yeah. A few of you are saying yes. It looks like you're not the only one. Kelly, thank you so much for that one, because it's a classic. Other than the boundaries one, that's the next most common bit of distinction coaching I do, actually. You know, and we could all embody our evil rich person. Yeah, I'm doing a workshop on this in Vroom. Yeah. I did a workshop with Occupy. Do you remember who Occupy were years ago? I went to Occupy years ago. I was involved in London, and they had to re-own their inner banker, and several of them just couldn't do it, and others were like, oh my god, you know, like they really found that part of them that was greedy, and they were like mind blown by it. It's really funny. It's what we tend to do when there's all of these distinction collapses create a disowned self, right? So that creates a shadow projection. This is a little bit more psychodynamic, but you know, if there's no such thing as good people with money, then I'm going to be madly projecting that everyone with money is an evil person. I'm not going to be seeing them. I'm not going to be perceiving them, right? Because I can't. You know? So all of these, in a way, are a disconnection from reality and a disconnection from intimacy and connection. All of them. Because something's impossible. Do you get it? A little bit advanced. You don't have to worry about it. Good. Next. Any problem at all you've got? Just tell me a problem. You don't even have to tell me. I'll see if I can work out the distinction. 50% of the time you can do distinction coaching. Not always. Some challenge you're having. Chelsea.
With my co-facilitators in creating a camp, being systematic and nice, or like I'm seen as not nice because I like a system in place that we all follow.
Okay, so they don't have a distinction between order and fascism. Does that make sense? So you can also look at this organizationally, right? This is like the German one. You also see this in NGOs a lot, in liberals a lot. They don't have a distinction between order and tyranny, essentially. So if you're trying to establish order, you're seen as tyrannical. Yeah, nice. That was kind of one we looked at earlier. So good, nice version of that. Nice to show how these things can be sort of collective and not just individual. Because you'll be like, well, I'm just trying to organize things. And they're like, why are you being such a bitch? Yeah. Nazi. Okay. I just wanted to make an Excel spreadsheet. It's not your lack of distinction, it's theirs. Good. Anyone else? We're almost there now. It's such a good mood today. It's nice to be in a good mood. Might have got a bit fast today, so if you need me to repeat something, I'm aware that when I'm in a good... Frederica gave me the slow down symbol. She did it after she hated me, though. She didn't do it before she hated me. I saw. And what are we supposed to do when it's someone's lack of distinction? Point it out to them. You can coach them, right, as well. Like, you know, like you can even tell them, like, hey, I'm being orderly, not fascist. Give them that distinction cognitively, at least. Or you can say, hey, how would it be? I really don't want to be dictatorial or a bitch, but I do want to order things. What would that look like to you guys? So you're giving them the distinction in terms of like the conversationally, right? Yeah. Procrastination versus leisure time. Yeah. And what is that in the body? So not leisure time, but the embodiment of it. So what's the embodiment of relaxation versus procrastination? Because you're not actually relaxed when you're procrastinating, right? You're not really enjoying it. There's always that anxiety in this. There's definitely a distinction for me between those two things. Yeah. There we are.
Found how to raise my hand. Yeah, I find it difficult to trust people, new people, because I'm kind of observant. I see a lot, straightforward.
Oh, have you frozen? Or are you just East
Oh,
European? No, you're just East European. Sorry, I thought you'd frozen for a moment. Uh, that was a good one. I'll use that again. Write it down. So the distinction between being trusting, what was it? What, say one more time.
yeah, I would say the distinction. Yeah, between being overly open to people
Uh-huh. Oh,
and
this is a classic East European one. Being naive.
yeah, exactly. I forgot the word. Yeah, naive
Yeah,
and
like being, or in Hebrew, they'll say he's a sucker. They use this word in Hebrew a lot. What is it? Friar. So it's like everyone's a sucker because they haven't really got a good distinction between someone who's a sucker and someone who's just appropriately open and trusting. Equally, that means they don't have a distinction between being defensive and being appropriately boundaried. So there's two problems there, right?
Mhm.
See what I mean?
Kind of.
Okay, so traumatized countries in Eastern Europe particularly, and also Jews, often have a problem with trust. So the reason they have a problem with trust, if it's the world is dangerous, they don't have a distinction between safely being open and unsafely being open. Okay, so what that
Exactly.
leads to is either defensiveness
Mhm.
or seeing people who are open as all just idiots.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I've had Russian friends say, well, you should totally take their money in that situation. They're asking for it. What an idiot. You know, like it's like, so that, I mean, what I just said, you could write a book about, right? Like that's like a central theme of business and intimacy and everything else in East European cultures, like
Mhm.
in trust issues. So take a breath. I can see it's deep for you. So good. Oh, we're almost on time. Last one, Sophie. Let's make it a good one. Sophie Scammell, listen.
All right, so my studies are a total mess. And so when we're going to the exam, we don't get proper instruction. And so then we get feedback from the exam saying what we should have done. So I would say maybe something about freedom versus instability.
Yeah, freedom versus chaos.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that could be the difference, right? Like giving people appropriate. This tends to be like hashtag liberal parenting, hashtag Scandinavian, right?
Yeah, that's what it feels like. It's
Yeah.
also pedagogy, so it fits. Yeah.
Kind of fits with
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So they
Yeah.
might not themselves have the distinction between giving order and being a dictator. So it might come out of that, right?
I see.
So that's a liberal disease. The conservative disease is not having the distinction between being disciplined and just being mean. Yeah. So
Thanks.
you're very welcome. Tackety tack tack. All right, what a lovely session. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as me. Let's all take a few breaths together. A lot there, huh? A little bit of quiet for 30 seconds. Good. What was your big takeaway today? Big takeaway. Chinese or Indian? You can tell I'm losing weight because I'm thinking about food. Like 2 out of 1. Exactly. The anti-Spice Girls technique. There's always a third way. Technically, the third way does refer to fascism, by the way, in political theory, but just be a bit careful with that term. How rampant that is. Yeah, it's so rampant. Yeah, you need embodiment to do the hard things. Embodiment and social support, right? They're the two things. Calibrate social support. In and out. Something's great. Yeah, great. Oh, this is just like worth the price of the course. There's one session. Good. All right. Hopefully, Nietzsche wrote a chapter of his book called "Why I Write Such Good Books." Like, why I give such good lessons on distinction coaching is today's title. So yes. All right. So live workshops. Remember the British ones all over the UK. Well, not all over. Glasgow to Brighton anyway, in the West Country. Vienna. Hopefully, I'll see some of you there. Book in if you want the early bird rate. I think it's this week on all of them. East European Juice. I just explained your life. Valeria, take a walk. You might need to process some of this. Okay, it took me a while to get there, but some of this stuff needs a bit more time and space than we have on these calls. So jokes aside, you might want to take a bit of processing time if you've had a light bulb moment. The big problem with this stuff is it works too well, right? It's just like straight in. So do take time and space for your emotions and embodiment to catch up with your mind. Good. Thank you to support team. Anything that needs saying? Candice, Julia?
Yes. Homework for the peer group this week. You are practicing distinction coaching. And with your volunteers, leader follower, you should also be contacted by your learning buddy. So somebody that's going to supervise a session with you for your exams. So check your emails for those. They'll be coming from your learning buddies this week to plan a session with you. And if you haven't heard anything, email Keck at Embodiment Unlimited and we'll get you sorted.
Candice, can you just come and take charge of my life? Can you just come to my house and I'll just do exactly what you say? Because you're oozing competence and I just love it. I love it. It's great. It's great. Thank you so much. Good. What should we leave with? Do a little embodiment thing. Relax your eyes. Imagine your eyes had only cried good tears, only seen beautiful things, and only stared into the black pupils of loving irises. There. Motherfuckers are getting love poetry today. Nice one. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.